Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name, your congenial, convivial, and amiable, as always, host. Focal Point is the program, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio. Now, want to spend a little bit of time talking about this Obamagate. And I call it Obamagate because he is the common denominator. You've got the revision of the talking points at Benghazi. Nobody's even talking about that. There's not enough oxygen in the room to talk about that, so it's been crowded out. But that's a huge scandal because 4 Americans died. Who's at the center of that? Barack Obama. He gets the word at 5 o'clock that this attack is happening. He does nothing. He makes not a single phone call all night other than one call at 10 o'clock to Hillary, where apparently they cook up this farcical story that was all caused by this YouTube video. So he's at the center of the Libya thing. Then we've got the Department of Justice and their intrusion into freedom of the press. That's a huge scandal. Well, Eric Holder is his guy. He's defending Eric Holder. He appointed Eric Holder. He knew what Eric Holder was like when he appointed him, and Eric Holder knows what Barack Obama expects. Now, maybe you're not going to get Barack Obama's fingerprints on an order to go after these reporters. Maybe you won't see that, but Eric Holder's not a dummy. He knows exactly what the boss is looking for, so he's out there doing it. I mean, there's no way you do that kind of stuff if you don't think that your boss is going to sign off on it. So Obama's connected to that. He can't escape that. This whole IRS business, same deal. Where Obama is at the center of that thing because, again, the IRS knows what he's looking for. The IRS knows that their boss, Barack Obama, is teed off at the Tea Party. They know, the IRS folks, they know that the Tea Party is making life miserable for the boss. So their job is to get rid of the Tea Party. Their job is to harass the Tea Party. Their job is to neutralize and suppress the vote turnout for 2012 to reelect dear leaders. So Obama is connected to that. Again, you're probably not going to find a smoking gun memo from him or his fingerprints at the crime scene, but the IRS, those folks, they knew exactly what was expected of them. It was coming from the top. You know, I had the story in the stack yesterday, a couple of the rogue agents that they're talking about in Cincinnati, and they're out there complaining now. They've gone public and say, look, they were trying to use us as sacrificial lambs. They were throwing us under the train here, and we're not going to let them do it. We do not have enough juice to authorize something like that. That had to come from people above us, and they've even started naming names. One guy named Cordell Hull, who's in the IRS administration in Washington, D.C., he was the guy that was directing traffic. He was telling us what to do, and that guy's gone to ground. They can't find him now. So this is clearly coming from the center of government in Washington, D.C. Then you've got this spy scandal where you have the NSA, the National Security Administration. We talked about this with Kirby Anderson yesterday. They're out there monitoring every single phone call that is made in the United States of America. And then we found out they're not only monitoring Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile and Sprint and getting metadata from them, they also are intruding into emails and into Facebook pages and into photographs. They're tapping into Microsoft and Google and Yahoo and Facebook and YouTube, you name it. They are monitoring everything. And so this is a complete trashing of the Fourth Amendment. And, of course, the justification, we've got to do something about terrorism. And the point that I'm making here when it comes to this terrorism, look, and the number to call if you want to join the conversation, we'll talk about anything you want to today, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. So this whole thing is just Obamagate. Now, you go back to the NSA, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to deal with the issue of terrorism. Why do we have a problem with terrorism? Because of unrestricted Islamic immigration. I'm going to have Jeff join me here a little bit later in the program, and we're going to talk about what's going on over in England, play some sound bites from Tommy Robertson, who is the head of the English Defense League. They're alarmed at the way that the Islamic influence is corroding and corrupting British culture, which has been around for a couple of thousand years, and now it's being wiped out. It's being destroyed by this Islamic infiltration, and the political leadership of the UK too cowardly to do anything about it. They're craven. They capitulate. They're little Nancy boys. They're afraid to stand up to these Islamic thugs. They're letting themselves get pushed around. And then people like Tommy Robinson and the good-hearted people of the UK that just want to protect something precious, their cultural heritage, they're the ones now that are treated as criminals. So we'll talk about that probably in the second hour. But so the NSA is at the root of this. They're monitoring every single phone. And here's the problem. It's our unrestricted Islamic immigration. That's the problem. Unrestricted Islamic immigration. That is the problem. You get down to the root of it, that's the problem. You are not going to deal with the issue of terrorism, internal terrorism, domestic terrorism, until you deal with Islamic immigration. So that's the problem. Too many Muslims carrying this kind of jihadist ideology have come into the United States. And again, I say this every time, but I want to be very clear. I'm not talking about all Muslims. I'm talking about devout Muslims. I'm talking about Muslim fundamentalists. I'm talking about Muslims who take the Quran as seriously as you and I take the Bible. We take the Bible seriously. That's why we love our enemies. That's why we pray for them. That's why we believe in forgiving people. That's why we believe in being faithful to our wives, being invested in the lives of our kids. Why? Because we are devout believers in the Bible as the Word of God. Well, you got a Muslim who believes as devoutly in the Quran as we believe in the Bible. He is a threat to the security of the United States and to every infidel who lives here. That's you and me, because their holy book instructs them to take us out, instructs us to slay us wherever they happen to find us. Now, the problem is with all these Muslims coming into the United States, we don't know who represents a threat and who doesn't. We don't know which of them are devout enough to take a knife and cut our heads off and which aren't. We have no way to tell the difference between them. And we're not getting any help from the so-called moderate Muslims. They're not helping us figure out a way to identify the Muslims we've got to worry about. They're not fingering them for us. They're not narking them off so we can stop them before they get started. So the problem we've created for ourselves is this unrestricted Islamic immigration, and now we're trying to deal with it by creating another problem, and that is by trashing the Fourth Amendment. So problem A, unrestricted Islamic immigration. Problem B, trying to address problem A by trashing the Fourth Amendment. Now, I think you and I are pretty alarmed at what's going on. Here is Harry Reid, clip number 1. Harry Reid hacking and flacking for the Obama administration. NSA, they're monitoring every single phone call you make, ladies and gentlemen. They're monitoring your email. They're monitoring your Facebook posts. They're monitoring your personal YouTube channel. And here's what Harry Reid has to say about all of that.
But right now, I think we should everyone should just calm down and understand this isn't anything that is brand new. It's been going on for some 7 years, and we've tried often to try to make it better, and we'll continue to do
that. So Harry Reid says, everybody just calm down. We've been doing this for the last 7 years. We've been poking into your private communications for almost a decade. So lighten up. Get used to it. This is the new America under Barack Hussein Orwell. The book 1984, that was Orwell's vision of the future, Big Brother. I mean, that's where the term came from, spying on everybody, a complete, absolute, totalitarian, authoritarian form. That's what we're turning into. You know, Mark Levin yesterday saying we're headed toward a police state. By the way, I've got this column somewhere, but Thomas Sowell, basically, he's talking obliquely, but he's talking about Islamic immigration. And just talking about the fact that it is absolute folly. It is folly. It is stupidity to allow people without almost no restriction to immigrate into your country if they do not share your cultural and historical values. They will weaken the cultural fabric. They will undermine the principles on which your country has operated if you allow this to happen. And basically, Sowell said, look, that's what we're doing. We are allowing this flood of people to come into our shores. They don't want to become Americans. They don't want to adopt our heroes. They don't want to adopt our values. They don't want to adopt our religious traditions. They don't want to adopt our history. They want to come and be separate little enclaves where they preserve their totalitarian ideology. Now, here, clip 2, here is Barack Obama back in 2007. This is Obamagate. He's at the heart of this. This is his NSA, his IRS, his Department of Justice, his State Department. This is Obamagate. He's at the center of all of this. Now, here is what he said in 2007 going after George Bush, and he is way worse than George Bush. Remember, George Bush, he used this FISA authorization to track international communications. Look, we got to figure out who overseas is communicating with people in the United States and cooking something up. It's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And under Obama, this thing has been used to monitor communications that take place entirely within the United States from one American to another. The purpose is let's get people who are not Americans, who are overseas. 15 of those 19 hijackers came from Saudi Arabia. The other 4 came from other places. None of them were native-born Americans. We've got to track what they're doing so we can stop them. So that's what that act authorizes, and realizes that people overseas, they have no Fourth Amendment rights. If you're not an American citizen, you have no Fourth Amendment claim. You have no Fourth Amendment rights whatsoever. We can monitor you. We can spy on you. We can tap your phone. We can do anything we like to protect the American people from you because you don't have Fourth Amendment rights. And that was the whole point. Let's monitor these communications from people overseas. Here's what President Obama said 2007.
This administration also puts forward a false choice between the liberties we cherish and the security we provide. I will provide our intelligence and law enforcement agencies with the tools they need to track and take out the terrorists without undermining our Constitution and our freedom. That means no more illegal wiretapping of American citizens. No more national security letters to spy on citizens who are not suspected of a crime. No more tracking citizens who do nothing more than protest a misguided war. No more ignoring the law when it is inconvenient. That is not who we are. And it's not what is necessary to defeat the terrorists. The FISA court works. The separation of powers works. Our Constitution works. We will again set an example for the world that the law is not subject to the whims of stubborn rulers and that justice is not arbitrary. This administration acts like violating civil liberties is the way to enhance our security. It is not. There are no shortcuts to protecting America.
All right, so that's Barack Obama, 2007. No more illegal wiretapping of American citizens. No more spying on citizens who are not suspected of a crime. No more ignoring the law when it's inconvenient. That was then. This is now. Back in 2.